Heavenly Father, we come to you again, Lord. We just thank you. We've had a rich, full day already, and I just pray now that as we talk, that you would remove any distractions. I pray that your Spirit would be here to guide and direct us. Help us to understand these principles about this very important disease, and I pray for a blessing for each one here. Be with those who can't be here. In Jesus' name, amen. So, cancer, lifestyle makes all the difference. All right. Well, again, we teach from the Bible, inspiration, and good scientific research. Remember, not all research is good, so we want to look at research with a discerning eye. I believe our Creator intended for us to be in good health, and that is so that we can use that good health to serve Him. I believe we have precious truths to share with you that when adhered to, they save lives. I believe God has a plan through which He can accomplish this in all of us. God's plan is available to everyone because God is an equal opportunity God. And God's plan is not man's plan. God's plan is different than the world's plan, okay? Without the life of God, nature would die. His creative works are dependent on Him. He bestows life-giving properties on all that nature produces. The same power that sustains nature is also working in mankind. Acts 17:28 says, "In God we move and have our being." The beating heart, the throbbing pulse, every nerve and muscle in the living organism are kept in order and activity by the power of an infinite God. So God works to keep us going, to sustain us. And when we are following His plan, that even works a little bit better. Through the agencies of nature, God is working day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment to keep us alive, to build up and restore us. When any part of the body sustains an injury, a healing process is at once begun. Nature's agencies are set at work to restore soundness, but the power working through these agencies is the power of God. When one recovers from disease, it is God who restores him. So, I'm looking at this hymnal, and just imagine with me as I'm turning the pages that I got a paper cut. You've all had a paper cut before, right? It is a microscopic laceration, and it hurts. So I get this paper cut. What's the first thing I do? The first thing you do is you bleed, but you can't lick it anymore because now we're in COVID. So you hold pressure, okay? You hold pressure. When an injury occurs, a healing process is at once begun. As you are holding pressure, a miracle takes place. A miracle, okay? Blood starts to clot, something that we call the clotting cascade. But blood is circulating throughout your body, but it only clots where it needs to clot, where you have this microscopic laceration. It doesn't clot in your heart, causing a heart attack or a blood clot in your heart. It doesn't clot in your lungs, causing a pulmonary embolus. It doesn't clot in your brain, causing a stroke. It only clots at your fingertip where you have that cut. Miracle. Miracle. Second miracle, as you're holding pressure, microscopic fibers get laid across the cut that put a little bit of pressure and tension on the edges of the wound to hold them together so that they can start to approximate. That's a miracle, And God has created our bodies with this ability to heal if we will just put them in the right condition. Again, our definition of disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from a violation of the laws of health. So if there are health laws that we can violate, we need to know what they are in order to not violate them. So here are the 8 laws of health: nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, trust in God. We use the acronym NEWSTART to represent those 8 laws of health. So our topic is cancer. Well, what exactly is cancer? Cancer is an uncontrolled proliferation of cells. The cells start to grow out of control, okay? Our body has control mechanisms that are built into it. Our brain only gets to a certain size. Our heart only gets to a certain size. Our liver, for example, only gets to a certain size. But did you know, for example, the liver can continue to grow and get bigger? If you were to take out a piece of the liver would grow and start to fill in that area that had been taken out. But it doesn't do that normally because there are these control mechanisms that are built in to prevent that from happening. Cancer produces a malignant tumor. You can have a tumor that is not malignant, but if it's not malignant, it is not cancer. Okay? You can have a tumor that is not malignant. If it's not malignant, it's not cancer. For example, people will get little fatty growths in their skin, what we call a lipoma. That's a tumor. It's a collection of cells, fat cells, but it is not malignant. It's not associated with cancer. Okay? Cancer may entail metastases. Metastases are where a tumor of the same type appears far from the original site. So, for example, if you have prostate cancer as a male, or if you have breast cancer as a female, if you get cancer cells that now show up in your spine, in bone, that would be a metastasis. That would be a tumor that is far away from the original site. The natural progression of cancer is if you just let it do its thing, if you leave it alone, you don't do anything to it, it leads to death. Have you been to Home Depot or Lowe's or Ace, or I don't know what kind of hardware stores you have around here if you have something else, but have you been to the hardware store and been to the DIY section? Stands for do it yourself. Well, now we're starting to figure out that cancer is a do it yourself disease. In other words, our chronic exposure to environmental factors determines our risk of developing cancer. So if we put ourselves in exposure to certain things, our risk of cancer suddenly jumps up. What we eat and drink makes a big difference within our bodies as a relation to whether we get cancer or not. Where we live and where we work also makes a difference as to whether we may get cancer or not. And what we breathe. These 3 areas have a significant impact on our risk of cancer. So I want to give you an analogy, okay? We like to use analogies. This is not exactly how it happens, but I think it helps to give us a little better understanding, a little better perspective, if you would, about cancer, okay? The body may use tumors as containers to store toxic waste collected throughout the body. If you're getting yourself exposed to toxins and toxic waste, one of the ways your body may react is it tries to produce this tumor to sort of wall it off and keep it in one spot. When our natural methods of elimination, like our bowels, our kidneys, our liver, and lungs and skin are overloaded, or they are clogged, or they are inadequate, the body may manufacture these tumors or garbage cans, if you would. A physician can cut, burn, do chemotherapy, or radiate the cans and their contents, but soon the body will manufacture more containers or more tumors. So if you do nothing else, if you get a tumor and you have it taken care of and they do chemotherapy or they do radiation or they cut it out or whatever, if you change nothing else, what's going to prevent you from getting another tumor like you had one before? Nothing. Yeah. Whatever caused you to get that first tumor could cause you to get another one, right? The solution is you need to change. You need to do things differently. What do they say the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing and looking for a different result. So you need to change your lifestyle, change your diet, improve your ways of eliminating waste, change the way you do things. A couple of definitions. The first one is a carcinogen, a food substance or other agent that fosters the development of cancer. So carcinogens are things that cause our bodies to start making cancerous cells. Common carcinogens include tobacco smoke. That's a big one. Food additives like nitrites. Substances formed during the cooking of meat. Wait a second. Not too many of us eat meat raw. So if in just preparing it, we potentially are making it cancerous, we've got a problem, right? We've got a problem. Chemical contaminants like pesticides and things like that. And viruses, mold, and radiation. All of those things potentially are carcinogens, substances that foster the development of cancer. A second definition, a mutagen, a substance that produces a mutation or change in the genetic code of cells. So every single cell in our body has a copy of our DNA. Our DNA is the blueprint that God made to make us who we are. Our DNA is in every single cell in our bodies. And if it starts to get changed, if something mutates it, causes a change in it, then we're not going to be the same. Our DNA is going to be changed. Mutations cause cells to become cancerous. Mutagens are also carcinogens because they foster the development of cancer. Mutagens are formed when foods, especially meats, are fried or roasted. Do you see a theme here? The food that we're eating, when we cook it, we potentially are making it poisonous for us, causing us to get a greater risk of cancer. Here are the statistics. Cancer is the second leading cause of death. Second leading cause behind what? Heart disease. Heart disease is the number one killer in the United States. We're going to talk about that some tomorrow night. So make sure you come back, okay? A little teaser for tomorrow night. It's the second leading cause of death. 1 out of every 3 people will get cancer. 1 out of every 6 will die from it. There's enough of us in here that we could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, just to see how many people could get cancer and how many people could die from it. Now, in that statistic, there is some positive news. Just because you have cancer doesn't mean you have to die from it. About half the people who get cancer don't die from it. So let's figure out what we can do to get in that half, right? Yeah, there is some positive news. 3 out of every 4 homes are affected by cancer. My home was affected by cancer. My mother was a nurse, and she died about 18 years ago. She worried a lot. My mother was always worrying and trying to sort stuff out and fix things and make everything good. And about 18 years ago, she developed a cancer, a tumor in her liver. We don't know where it came from. She wasn't a drinker, wasn't a smoker, and they couldn't find a primary somewhere else because sometimes you'll get liver cancer that develops from like a tumor in your colon or something like that, but they couldn't find anything like that. And she ended up dying. Very, very sad because, like I said, my mother was a nurse, and she would have loved to see what I'm doing today. She knew I was a ER doctor and so on, but to see me doing lifestyle medicine, she would have loved it. She'd have been right here with me teaching and helping and doing things. And she missed that. She missed seeing my children grow up, her grandchildren. She missed seeing 2 of my children are married. She missed seeing that. My oldest son just had a grandchild for us this summer. Would have been her great grandchild, and she missed that. So just very unfortunate that she died early. But I believe she died because she worried herself to death, literally. And we talked about how anxiety is bad for you and can make you sick. Well, I think she was anxious about everything, and that weakened her immunity, and that's how she got her cancer. So very sad. The characteristics of cancer. What makes cancer cancer? Well, it sabotages your DNA. It attacks your DNA and tries to damage it. It leads to deficient control. Like I told you, the liver will keep growing if you let it. But there are control mechanisms that control that. It doesn't get too big. But if you get sick or if you get cancer, that liver, the cells may start to grow out of control. Cancer invades the boundaries of other cells. Cancer doesn't know its personal space. It will get in your face. Leads to uncontrolled growth. Cancer must attract a blood and nutrient supply if it's going to keep growing. Okay? It has to attract blood vessels to be able to keep growing. And it leads to a loss of the normal complexity of cells. Okay? So this is how we can tell cancer is cancer. We look at the cells under a microscope, and we see that they don't look organized like normal cells. They look very unorganized, very immature, if you would, because the cells don't have the typical order and pattern that goes with normal tissue. So the steps to cancer. Step number 1 is initiation. Let's say it together. Initiation. Something happens to start the process of trying to develop cancer. Something initiates it, okay? So what you see here is a picture of DNA. DNA looks like a railroad track that has been twisted upon itself, okay? So it's got these 2 parallel bars that twist, and across them are these things that we call, they would look like a railroad tie if this was a railroad track, okay? So there are 4 base pairs. The adenine links to the thymine. A and T go together. And the cytosine links to the guanine. C and G go together, okay? So 4 base pairs to make up DNA. I want you just to take a look around the room for just a minute. Just look at the other people who are in the room right now, okay? Does anybody look like you? No. Does anybody look like me? No, that's a good thing, right? Yeah. We are all made up of the same DNA. 4 base pairs. Yet each and every one of us is different, is unique. Individual masterpiece made by God. God uses simple things to make complex beings. Just think about that for a minute. You know, today, if you join a website or you have an online account, they want you to make a password. If you have a 4-letter or number password, it's a waste of time. There are hackers out there who can hack that in less than 30 seconds. They have computer models and programs that'll go through all these combinations and come up with your password. So now they tell you it's got to be, it used to be 8 to 20, but I just saw one the other day that they said could be 8 to 40 characters. You could write out a little sentence in there, Um, the simple things of God confound the wise. God uses 4 base pairs to make each and every one of us different. Isn't that amazing? It blows my mind when I think about it. So what happens when cancer starts? The initiation process, your DNA gets damaged, permanently damaged. Free radicals may damage the nuclear membrane and the DNA. So the free radicals come in and make a hole in the nucleus, and then they can go into the nucleus and actually damage the DNA. Carcinogens or cancer viruses can then enter into the DNA. What is that? What's that all about? Wow. Well, we'll talk some more about that. So, sources of free radicals. Where do free radicals come from? Well, they include things like smog, particulate pollution in the air. That's a problem we have in California, especially in Southern California. Overeating is another one. If we are eating too much food, that may be a source of free radicals that might make us more prone to cancer. Wow. A high-fat diet is another thing that can cause us to have free radicals. And what does the world tell you should eat? Yeah, I tell you should eat high protein, high fat, keto. Hey, I'm one of the only doctors who's telling you if you're eating a lot of fat, it might make you have cancer. Excessive exercise. What do I mean when I say excessive exercise? Yeah, but how do we define that? What's our definition of excessive exercise? Yeah, you shouldn't stress yourself before you go and get stressed. I get it. Yeah, don't ride your bicycle to the stress test. No, excessive exercise, what I mean by that is people who are really overdoing it. Like, for example, maybe doing a triathlon or a marathon. Where we live in California, we're just down below Lake Tahoe. And they have a race that they run from Lake Tahoe to Auburn, California. It's called the Western States. It is 100 miles. And people run this, and they end in Auburn, which is the next town down from where we are at Weimar. And it's interesting, when they run this race, a couple years ago, I noticed they put up these sort of life-size posters of people who had run in the race. And I don't know if they won the race or what. But when I looked at these people, they didn't look that happy or pleasant, or they looked like they were in a lot of pain. And I'm like, that would not do anything to motivate me to go want to run 100 miles. I mean, I'm not motivated to run 100 miles no matter what, but, drive 100 miles, that's a different story. I can work with that. But to run 100 miles, I'm not so sure. So excessive exercise is not walking around the parking lot 3 times, okay? Excessive exercise is where we go out and do this damage to our body. We injure our bodies, okay? Any other source of trauma, injury, or inflammation could be excessive as well. If we have too much ultraviolet light, if we're getting too much sunlight, if we have excessive radiation in general, high blood sugar may be a source of free radicals. If you have diabetes and your blood sugars are out of control, that may be a source of free radicals, okay? As we get older, as we have more chronic diseases, we're more at risk for illness, including cancer. So free radicals can come in many different shapes and forms. We said step 1 was what again? Initiation. Step number 2 is promotion. Let's say it together. Promotion. Cells rapidly multiply by undergoing cell division. You remember biology class where we had chromosomes and they would duplicate. They'd go to the center of the cell. Half the chromosomes would go to one side, half would go to the other, and the cell membrane would pinch off, and what was one cell now becomes 2 daughter cells, okay? So when cells undergo cell division, if they have damaged DNA, they pass it on. because they just pass on what they have. All right? So, damaged DNA gets passed on. So we had one cell with a damage to the DNA. When they go through cell division, now we have 2, then we have 4, then we have 8, then we have 16, and so on. Excess omega-6 fatty acids, like what's found in corn and safflower oil, seem to promote rapid cell division. So, 40, 50 years ago, we used to go to the store to buy corn oil because we used corn oil to fry chicken. Today, we don't go and buy corn oil so much. We buy more vegetable oil. But per capita, per individual in the United States, our corn oil consumption has gone up. How are we getting more corn oil in our diets? Processed foods. How are we getting it in processed foods? We get corn oil. We're not eating more corn oil. We don't go to the grocery store and buy much corn oil, but we're getting more corn oil in the form of syrup, high fructose corn syrup. So what they do is they take corn oil and they add a simple sugar, fructose, to it, and then they use that to sweeten everything that's processed, So it's giving us excess omega-6 fatty acids. Now, we've told you we want you to use some omegas. What type of omegas do we want you to use? Omega-3s. And how do we get those? Flaxseed, chia seed, some nuts, all these different things, okay? So this is different. We're not talking about those. We're talking about omega-6s here. Corn and safflower oil promote rapid cell division. So if you get a tumor and you're getting exposed to this corn and safflower oil with these omega-6 fatty acids, it's easier for your cells to divide and start forming a tumor. Reproductive tissues are particularly cancer-prone, dividing rapidly when triggered by the body's own sex hormones. For example, estrogen promotes the fast growth of breast cells in women. So when you have a breast cancer, they test it to see if it's estrogen or progesterone sensitive. And if it is, they treat you a little bit differently. Some other promoters of cancer include obesity, sugar, refined carbohydrates, and alcohol. Those are all cancer promoters. So we said the steps to cancer. Step 1 was what again? Initiation. Step number 2, promotion. Step number 3 is progression. Let's say it together. Progression. If all other defenses fail and a damaged cell spawns a tumor, the question is whether it will build itself a blood supply and thereby be able to invade surrounding tissues. So, cancer cells need to attract blood vessels to themselves in order to keep growing. And some cancers are very slow growing. It may take 10 years or more for a tumor to be seen, okay? So this is a tumor, and it's secreting these things called growth factors, trying to attract blood vessels. But our body doesn't just sit there and allow that to happen, okay? It has these COX-2 inhibitors that try to prevent the blood vessels from being attracted to the growth factors and trying to prevent the blood vessels from linking up to the tumor. So there's this battle between the cancer and our bodies. Science also indicates that 1/3 of these cancer deaths are directly related to nutrition. So nutrition makes an impact on cancer. So don't eat the burger and chips. Eat the whole food, plant-based diet with the fruit. And here is some research that was done. This is a review of 4,500 studies. Is that a lot of studies or is that just a few? That's a lot. They paid research assistants to read through all these articles and summarize them. And here's what they said. This is Dr. Gabriel Feldman, Director of Prostate and Colorectal Cancer from the American Cancer Society. He says, we don't need years of research. If people would implement what we know today, cancer rates would drop. It's that simple. So when was today? 1998. Almost 25 years ago. So let me ask you, are cancer rates dropping? No. So what that tells us is that we didn't implement what they knew 25 years ago. Maybe if we had, my mother would still be alive. Okay? You're right, exactly. Meat and dairy products doubles the risk of metastatic prostate cancer. Meat by itself increases the risk of metastatic prostate cancer by 66%. Research done at Harvard. Women with breast cancer have 3 times more bovine leukemia virus, a virus found in meat and milk, compared to women with normal breasts. Well, what exactly are we talking about there? Let me explain that for you. Bovine leukemia virus causes basically breast cancer in cows. It causes tumors in their udders. And it's getting more and more prevalent in the animals. So dairy cows, they don't let them live too long. They grow them for about 2 years, and then they slaughter them and raise up some more to replace them. And what we're starting to find out is that the bovine leukemia virus is ending up in the milk and the meat of these animals. So if you go and buy milk from a farmer who has, let's say, 4 or 5 cows, you might have a 60 to 70% penetration of bovine leukemia virus, meaning you have a 60 to 70% chance that the milk you buy may have it in it. But that's not how we do it. You don't go down to Farmer Smith down the road and buy some milk from him. You go to the grocery store. So this is America. We do it a little different in America. We have conglomerates that buy milk from 500 farmers. And then they pool it all together. And when they do that, you have almost a 100% penetration for bovine leukemia virus. And so we're starting to see that this virus that causes cancer in the animals is now starting to show up in human beings. And when the human beings have it, guess what? They get cancer too. It's not good. The light given me is that it will not be very long before we shall have to give up using animal food. Even milk will have to be discarded. Disease is accumulating rapidly. The curse of God is upon the earth because man has cursed it. You know, when I read that, I remember back to, I think it was 2006. The internet was just sort of coming into its own. And there was this video that went viral. Now, in 2006, that was about the height of the mad cow craze in America. Okay? And they showed a video that went viral on the internet of a cow that couldn't stand up. It looked like it was on ice. All 4 hooves were going in different directions and it couldn't stand up. And they showed this video of guys who worked at a slaughterhouse. And they were trying to take a forklift and to push that cow into the slaughterhouse so they could slaughter it and put it in the food supply. What mankind will do to each other for the sake of a few greenbacks, a few dollars, is evil. Evil, you know? The curse of God is upon the earth because man has cursed it. The habits and practices of men have brought the earth into such a condition that some other food than animal food must be substituted for the human family. We do not need flesh food at all. God can give us something else. And you got a witness of that today. God can give us something else. One of the things I want you to take home from this cooking school that we had is that in order to eat healthy, you don't have to eat cardboard. You know, you don't have to eat food that doesn't appeal to your senses. You can actually have some pleasure and satisfaction in eating food that is healthy for you. So I want you all to start making changes and start doing things differently. And if you're eating like this, continue to develop it and continue to allow it to progress. Compared to 1900, Americans now eat 1/3 more fat and 1/3 less fiber. In areas of the world where fat intake is low and fiber is high, there is much less colon, breast, and prostate cancer. In the United States, Canada, and New Zealand, where diets are low in fiber and high in fat, the rates for these cancers are much higher. So, because we eat differently, we experience illness differently. The Japanese tend to have a high fiber, low fat diet. And so many things will compare the Japanese to Americans. When Japanese migrate to Hawaii and adopted the Western dietary habits, we find that their rates of cancer increase. Okay? So here is the Japanese and the different types of cancer. The incidence of cancer in Japan, whatever it was, they gave it a 1, okay? When these Japanese people moved to Hawaii, breast cancer goes up 4 times. Colon cancer, 5 times. Prostate cancer, 11 times. Just by moving to Hawaii. Rectal cancer, 3 times, and lung cancer, twice. All of them increased. And the majority of them started to approach that for Caucasians who lived in Hawaii. Breast cancer went up to 4, approaching 6. Lung cancer went up to 2, approaching 4. And then in some cases it equaled. Colon cancer went up to 5 times, the same as the Caucasian. But in other cases, it exceeded that of the Caucasians. Rectal cancer went up 3 times, above the 2, and prostate cancer went up 11 times above the 3. The rates increased dramatically and soon equaled or exceeded those for Americans. So what they're trying to say is these Japanese people have the same genetic makeup. The only thing that has changed is they've changed their geographic location and thereby have changed their lifestyle. And that lifestyle change now causes an increased risk of cancer. So we said the steps to cancer were what? Step number 1 was what? Initiation. So there are defense mechanisms for each step of the process of forming cancer. The first line defense is a cell has the God-given ability to repair its own DNA or even cut out the damaged strand. So I told you DNA is like a double helix, like a railroad track that's twisted. Well, there is this protein that goes up and down the railroad track, almost like what you would imagine as a push car. You know, in those old Western movies, you see the train coming and you see 2 guys going like this trying to get away. Well, that protein goes up and down the DNA scanning for problems. And if it finds damage, it can either repair the damage, or if the damage is so bad that it is irreparable, then it can cut out that strand and put in a new strand, which is exactly like the original strand. This, again, is evidence for intelligent design. If we had to wait millions and billions of years for this protein to evolve, we would all be dead. So God created this protein that is able to scan and check for damage and fix it if needed. But look at this. Caffeine interferes with this DNA repair process. And I don't care how you get your caffeine, whether it is coffee or tea or colas or energy drinks or chocolate or whatever it is. Caffeine interferes with this DNA repair process. Antioxidants stop the free radicals from harming the cell. So things like lycopene, which is found in the tomatoes, vitamins A, C, and E, selenium, genistein, which is found in the soybeans. All of those things help to protect us from free radicals. So we want some antioxidants in our diet. Well, here's a list of antioxidant-rich fruits: strawberries, plums, oranges, red and white grapes, kiwi, pink grapefruit, bananas, apples, tomatoes, red bell pepper. Wait a second. I thought we were talking about fruits. How did we get tomatoes and red bell peppers up there? Fruits? Who said they're fruits? Fruits? Fruit. The seeds are inside. The definition of a fruit comes actually from the Bible. It says the trees with the fruits thereof with their seeds inside themselves. So if it has a seed inside, it's a fruit. Now, we don't typically think of tomatoes and red bell peppers as fruits. We think of them as vegetables because we tend to eat them with other vegetables. We tend to eat them on salad and things like that. But they are fruits. A red bell pepper, is it more or less expensive than a green bell pepper? More. Why? They don't grow them as much as the green ones. It's ripe. It takes a little longer to produce. So they charge you more money. You know, the red bell peppers take longer to grow, and they don't last as long on the shelf. So they charge you more money. If you go buy a red bell pepper, you might get it in a nice, pretty little package with a yellow and orange with it. Sometimes you can get them just by themselves. If you go to buy a green bell pepper, you never see them all wrapped up in a package. There's a bunch of them in the bin. You can pick any one you want. A green bell pepper is an unripe fruit. And I do not recommend eating unripe fruits. Okay? So, I don't recommend eating the green peppers. Have you ever eaten a green bell pepper and kind of burped and tasted it again? It's an unripe fruit. It creates a little bit of indigestion. You don't see that as much if you're eating a red, yellow, or orange. So, we didn't do it today, but when we were traveling and we had a family ministry that we did, we used to call it Creator's Lifestyle because I believe God had a lifestyle He wants us to live. We would do cooking classes like we did today. And one of the things that we would do at our cooking classes is we would give people a fruit salad. So we'd give them a menu like you had, and on there would be a fruit salad. And our fruit salad consisted of red, yellow, and orange bell peppers, tomatoes, black olives, cucumbers, and on top of that, we would put a green avocado dressing. It was a fruit salad, but not what you think of when you hear the term fruit salad. Yeah. So just remember, anybody who has indigestion, I tell them to especially try to separate eating fruits and vegetables. So if you have problems with your gut, you have indigestion, I would say to you, eat fruits at one meal and eat vegetables at the other. So typically I eat fruits in the morning with breakfast and I eat vegetables with lunch. So if I'm having a salad and I have indigestion, I would leave off maybe the red bell peppers, maybe the olives, maybe the tomatoes, maybe the cucumbers. I would eat the other vegetables like carrots and celery and broccoli and cauliflower and whatever else. But I would not eat the fruits as much if I had problems. Antioxidant-rich vegetables: garlic, kale, spinach, Brussels sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, broccoli, beets, onions, corn. We need to protect our DNA. Foods rich in antioxidants protect the DNA. So things like garlic, cruciferous vegetables. We may want to make sure we have sufficient B12, folic acid, and magnesium. We know that eating fruits and vegetables decreases our risk of cancer. There's lots of research to show that. Research shows that eating a variety of these foods has a synergistic effect. That means the components act synergistically. And what that means is that they act together. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So when you put these things together, they do a greater job of helping to protect you from cancer. The greater the variety in fruit and vegetable intake is also associated with lower inflammation. So we want to make sure that we have less inflammation, because inflammation is one of the mechanisms that cancer uses to start to cause us problems. So we said step 1 was what again? Initiation. Step number 2, promotion. Cruciferous vegetables turn bad estrogen into good estrogen. What are cruciferous vegetables? Cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, all of those are cruciferous vegetables. They come from the family Brassicaceae. Does anybody know why they are called cruciferous? Okay, crosses. Crus means cross. Yeah. Why are they? Yeah. When the flowers start to open, the petals are in the shape of a cross. Crus means cross. So the cross can not only save you spiritually, can also save you physically. Praise the Lord, right? All right. Nobody's asked me about this yet, but we're going to talk about it. Soy. We got to talk about soy. Soy products contain isoflavonoids, which act as estrogen. Did I say that soy has estrogen in it? No, I did not. I said that soy has isoflavonoids, which can have an estrogen-like effect. Okay? And if that estrogen-like effect is there, it may actually be helpful for us because it may leave less room for our body's estrogen. So, imagine this is a breast cancer cell. It has these receptors on the surface that are estrogen receptors. The way the artist has depicted them, they sort of look like a Y, or maybe you could imagine a champagne glass, or whatever you want to think of. And the way the artist has depicted the body's estrogen, it kind of looks like a T. It has a foot piece that comes in and goes down into that cup, and it stimulates that receptor, which then causes the cell to grow. Okay? Everybody with me so far? All right. Now, the artist has called it plant estrogen, but that is incorrect. It's actually isoflavonoids, which have an estrogen-like effect. These isoflavonoids can come and bind to an estrogen receptor. But you will notice that nothing goes down in the cup, so it doesn't stimulate that receptor to cause that cell to grow more. And if the isoflavonoid is bound to this receptor, the body's estrogen can't come and bind to that receptor, so it may actually have a protective effect. Now, I understand if people don't want to use soy, but I don't think you have to avoid it. I just think you don't want to use it all the time, every day, for everything. I think you want to have some variety. So I like soy in certain forms. For example, I like edamame, and I like tofu. So if I have a choice to maybe use the almond milk that we made today or use soy milk, I might choose the almond milk and save my soy for things I like more. And I'm not drinking a glass of almond milk. I'm just using it to moisten my granola or whatever else I'm using it for. Tofu, soy milk, edamame, and other soy products are high in nutrients, including fiber, iron, magnesium, potassium, protein, and zinc. Soybeans naturally contain a class of phytoestrogens called isoflavonoids. The word phytoestrogens makes one think that soy has estrogen in it. It actually does not. And I've had men come up to me after a talk like this and say, listen, if I eat soy, is it going to make me grow breasts? The answer is unequivocally no, because it does not have estrogen, but it can have an estrogen-like effect. What we find is that estrogen has positive effects in some tissues and potentially negative effects in other tissues. High levels of estrogen can be good for the bones, but they can increase the likelihood of developing breast cancer. So if you have too much estrogen, it can actually make you get breast cancer. Soy seems to have a double effect. Soy seems to lower breast cancer risk, which would be an anti-estrogenic effect, but it also helps to reduce menopausal hot flash symptoms, which is a pro-estrogenic effect. So it seems to have these opposite effects in different tissues based on what's going on. Women diagnosed with breast cancer who ate the most soy lived significantly longer and had a significantly lower risk of breast cancer reoccurrence than those who ate less. It's rather fascinating. When you're diagnosed with breast cancer, if you eat more soy, you actually have a longer 5-year survival rate, or a higher 5-year survival rate. They say the quantity of phytoestrogens found in a single cup of soy milk may reduce the risk of breast cancer returning by 25%. That's pretty good. In one study, 90% of the breast cancer patients who ate the most soy phytoestrogens after diagnosis were still alive 5 years later, while half of those who ate little to no soy were dead. So I would rather go from a 50% death risk to a 10% death risk by using some soy than avoiding it and staying at 50%. So how did we get this connection between soy and breast cancer? Where did the theory come from that soy increases breast cancer risk? Well, it is based largely on research that showed that the main soy phytoestrogen, genistein, stimulates the growth of mammary tumors in a type of mouse. Okay, so this genistein causes mice to get tumors. And that is because the mice metabolize soy differently than humans do. Mice tend to concentrate the soy levels in their bloodstream, anywhere from 20 to 150 times. The breast cancer mouse in question concentrated it 58 times. We're not mice. We actually metabolize soy isoflavones very differently from rodents. So if we ate 58 cups of soybeans a day, then we may have the same breast cancer risk as those mice. But nobody's going out there and eating 58 cups of soybeans a day. What about prostate cancer for men? In the 1970s, during the Adventist Health Study, 12,000 Adventist men were asked about their use of soy milk. They were followed for up to 16 years to see who got cancer and who did not. Frequent consumption of soy milk was associated with a 70% reduction in the risk of prostate cancer. So, a little soy is actually going to be helpful for breast and prostate cancer. Prostate cancer cells carry beta-type estrogen receptors, which appear to act as tumor suppressors, kind of a gatekeeper, if you would. They inhibit invasion and proliferation and may prevent the prostate cells from turning cancerous in the first place. These are the receptors that are targeted by the phytoestrogens in soy, like genistein, which inhibits prostate cancer cell invasion and spread. So if you inhibit the spread of cancer, the patients live longer. So let's compare soy milk with cow's milk. They did a study looking at soy protein versus milk protein and the risk of prostate cancer. The milk group got 6 times more prostate cancer than the soy group. Dairy products are not just associated with getting prostate cancer, but also with dying from prostate cancer. Neither soy protein powder supplementation nor soy phytoestrogen dietary supplements had a significant benefit. So you got to take the whole soy and not just an isolate. Omega-3 fatty acids combat promotion. So where do we say we get our omega-3 fatty acids from again? Flaxseed, chia seeds, nuts. Yes, exactly. The omega-3s inhibit the production of prostaglandin E2. Prostaglandin E2 is produced by the tumor, and it suppresses the immune system, and it promotes tumor growth. So here you see a picture of some flax seed and flax oil. Again, we talked about this yesterday, I believe it was, but or maybe it was Friday night, I don't remember, but when you eat flax, you want to eat it like manna. You want to grind it and use it right away. You don't want to let it sit as flax meal or flax oil because it's exposed to the air and it starts to oxidize. So you want to grind it, only what you're going to use for that meal, sprinkle it on your food, and eat it right away. Okay? And step number 3, we said, was what again? Progression, yes. Genistein in the soybean suppresses the tumor's production of growth factors. So the genistein acts like a COX-2 inhibitor to prevent the blood vessels from linking up to the tumor. COX-2 inhibitors such as resveratrol, which is found in red grapes, and curcumin, which is found in turmeric, suppress the body's production of growth factors. So the resveratrol in the red grapes and the curcumin in the turmeric act like COX-2 inhibitors. And the darker the skin of the grape, the more resveratrol it has. So you want to eat dark-skinned red or black or purple grapes to get that resveratrol. And you don't have to drink the fruit of the grape. You can just eat the grape. Here's a book called Stop Cancer with Phytotherapy, written by Dr. Benjamin Lau and his wife Esther. Dr. Lau, I actually went to school with his son, but he was one of my professors when I was in medical school. Okay, and they did some research, and what they found is that immune cells can easily rid the cancer-prone cells, especially during that early initiation phase. So when things are just starting in that initiation phase, if our immune system recognizes there is a cancerous cell, it can take care of it pretty quickly. But cancer doesn't just sit around waiting for the immune system to come along and try to get rid of it. What it does instead is it does blind folding. The cancer cells blindfold our immune cells, like our natural killer cells and our macrophages, by spraying them with soluble factors. Now, what are soluble factors? Well, soluble factors are the waste products of these cancerous cells. So the soluble factors are the excreta from the cancerous cells. They spray them out there. The immune system recognizes that they come from cancer cells. They feel like they have destroyed the cancer cell, so they stop attacking it. Okay? You see how cancer could be a tool of the devil? Only somebody as devious as that would come up with a plan where, you have all these tricky mechanisms to try to avoid being attacked. Cancer cells also use cover-up. They protect themselves by covering their cell surface with a protein coating, making it harder for our immune system to recognize that it is a cancerous cell. So where does this protein coating come from? This protein coating comes from animal protein in the diet. So when we're eating animal protein, it gives the cancer something to try to cover itself with. Normally, the protein coating on cancer cells can be easily destroyed or digested by our pancreatic enzymes. Our pancreas makes trypsin and chymotrypsin. And these things can usually destroy the protein on cancerous cells. But when animal protein is consumed in the diet, these pancreatic enzymes are used up to digest the animal protein in the diet. So they're not available to help our immune system to attack these cancerous cells. Yeah. So it's a whole package system. That means there's not enough enzymes available to digest the protein coating on the cancer cells. It's a matter of choice. Phytochemicals are found in plant-based food. Phytochemicals greatly maximize immune function, helping to destroy cancer cells. Phytochemicals are selectively toxic to cancer cells and nourishing to normal cells. So, we can either eat the animal protein and not have the enzymes, or we can eat a plant-based diet and have enzymes and things to help us. Phase 1 enzymes. The liver has these enzymes that help to get rid of cancer cells. Phase 1 enzymes break apart bonds that hold toxins together. All right? So these phase 1 enzymes break apart these bonds. So here you see a phase 1 enzyme breaking a bond, and then we get carcinogens. Wait a second. Thought we said a carcinogen was a substance that fosters the development of cancer. Well, if that's the case, then these phase 1 enzymes are making things more dangerous rather than better. Often the byproducts of phase 1 activity are more toxic and become carcinogenic themselves. So, in order to get this decrease, there has to be a second step, all right? Phase 1 activity is necessary for toxins to be completely destroyed by phase 2 enzymes. So, it's a two-step process. The liver produces phase 2 enzymes to remove the dangerous residue that phase 1 enzymes left behind. It is important that phase 2 enzymes do not lag behind phase 1 enzymes. So, if there's a two-step process and your intermediary byproduct is more dangerous than what you started out with in the first place, this again has to be evidence for intelligent design. Because if you had to wait millions and billions of years for the second step in the process to evolve, we would all be dead. So God created our bodies with this two-step process intact from the beginning. Again, cruciferous vegetables, which are rich in sulforaphane, boost the production of phase 2 enzymes. So we said the cruciferous vegetables are things like Brussels sprouts that are pictured there, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, kale. All of those things are cruciferous vegetables. Fruits also boost phase 2 enzymes. So citrus, strawberries, raspberries, and raw apples. All of those boost phase 2 enzymes. Vitamin C prevents the formation of carcinogens from nitrates in the colon. So we want to make sure we have some vitamin C in our diet. 3 foods are there pictured on the screen that have vitamin C in them. Which food do you think has the highest concentration of vitamin C? How many would say the orange? How many would say the kiwi? How many would say the red bell pepper? Interesting. All right. The answer is red bell peppers. Of those fruits listed there, red bell pepper has the most. You know, we tend to associate vitamin C with tart, with that kind of sort of makes your taste buds pucker. So it's easy to understand why people might think oranges or kiwi would have it, but it's actually the red bell pepper. Fiber increases the elimination of carcinogens from the body and decreases their absorption from the gut. So we want to make sure we have fiber in our diet. Fiber encourages the growth of friendly bacteria. A greater number of studies have shown that a diet rich in fruits and vegetables has a protective effect against cancer. So we want to make sure we're including fruits and vegetables in our diet. Here's what another authority says. If meat eating wherever healthful, it is not safe now. Cancers and tumors and pulmonary diseases are largely caused by meat eating. More than 100,000 new cases of cancer each year in the United States can be attributed to excess body fat. The American Institute for Cancer Research estimates that 49% of endometrial cancers, 35% of esophageal cancers, 28% of pancreatic cancers, 24% of kidney cancers, 21% of gallbladder cancers, 17% of breast cancers, and 9% of colorectal cancers can be attributed to excess body fat. Another AICR report states that only half of Americans know that being overweight is a risk factor for many types of cancer. So, overweight is significant. Coffee also plays a role. Coffee is associated with bladder cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer, pancreatic cancer, and colon cancer. Prostate cancer is related to diets high in saturated fat, red meats, dairy products, all of those things. A French study of almost 3,000 people showed that individuals consuming cheese, all kinds, had a 20% increase in the risk of breast cancer compared to those who never used cheese. Daily consumers had a 50% increase in risk compared to never users. So cheese is also associated with cancer. Cheese contains oxidized cholesterol. It also is high in mutagens. It contains aflatoxins. Aflatoxins, what are those? Well, cancer from mold. Moldy peanuts and other nuts. You know, we used to live in North Carolina. And you know how they like to eat their peanuts in North Carolina? Boiled peanuts. Yeah. And if they boil peanuts, you can't tell if there's any mold or not anymore. Yeah. So, peanuts, majority of peanuts are harvested in the fall, in the wet, rainy season of the year. There is one peanut, though, the Valencia peanut, that is harvested in the dry season of the year. So that's one that is less prone to mold. Corn is another fruit that can be prone to mold. Moldy cheese rind. If I have some cheese and it has some mold on it and I want to sell it to you, what am I going to do? I didn't hear all of what people were chuckling at, but I'm going to cut it off. And I'll sell you the cheese, and then the stuff I cut off that has mold, I'm going to sell it to the guys who make blue cheese dressing because they want moldy cheese anyhow, right? Moldy apples in any form. Did you realize that apple cider, I'll come to you in just one second. Do you realize that apple cider is fermented? They take the apples that have fallen down in the orchard that they can't sell to anybody else, and they boil them down and make your apple cider. That also means your apple cider vinegar is fermented as well. Question or comment? I think lima beans are fine. I eat lima beans. In fact, I like lima beans. So lima beans are okay. Other fruits that may be affected by soft rot. Deficiencies of essential fatty acids in the diet can contribute to cancer. Well, what are we talking about when we say essential fatty acids? Essential fatty acids can be obtained from nuts, seeds, whole grains, legumes, olives, and avocados. These are things that are found in the food that gets into our body, and it helps to protect us from some of these changes that go along with cancer. So, serving suggestions for some of these foods: 2 tablespoons of nuts or seeds, a half a cup of cooked dried legumes, 6 to 8 olives, or a quarter of a medium avocado. How often? It's a serving for one meal. I think you can have avocado more, at least once a day, but you could maybe do it more depending on what else you're doing with your diet. Studies done on mice reveal that stressful situations such as poor housing conditions, overcrowding, and social tensions between mice seem to make the mice respond less favorably to cancer treatment. What does that sound like to you? Yeah, it sounds like the projects, right? Poor housing conditions, stressful situations, overcrowding, social tensions, all that stuff. Sounds like the city, the projects. Childhood leukemia is linked to electric and magnetic fields near residential areas, especially electrical lines and transformers. Anything that has an on-off switch, anything that produces electromagnetic radiation, potentially could be affecting us. It potentially could be causing us to get exposed to these things that can make us more prone to cancer. Healthy chickens or turkeys and their eggs for human consumption are commonly infected with viruses which cause cancer in these patients, or in these animals, Some of these viruses can infect and transform human cells in vitro, and human blood shows evidence of infection with these viruses. So the animals are getting sicker and sicker. And now we're starting to see that the humans are getting sicker and sicker because they're eating the sick animals. Just makes me sick. So, when I was a resident, I went to a slaughterhouse to collect some blood. I was doing research and I wanted blood, and I couldn't really use human blood, so I went to collect blood. And the day I went to collect it, they were slaughtering cattle. So I got to see that process, and it was a little bit gruesome to see it. And I couldn't get over this. I was there a little bit before lunch, and these guys are slaughtering these cows, and they take a break and go to lunch, and they're all eating meat. I just couldn't get over it. I mean, my stomach wasn't, I was still eating meat in those days, but I wouldn't have been able to eat any meat at that time. So I couldn't get over it. Anyhow, so at this slaughterhouse, they have a USDA veterinarian there inspecting the process, making sure they're not cruel to the animals, and inspecting the meat to make sure it looks okay and so on. And the inspection basically is, yeah, it looks okay. Oh, there could be a problem there. That's it. It's a visual inspection. If they see something, they bring it to their attention. If they don't see anything, it just goes right through. They say chickens in this country, up to 95% of the chickens have cancer. 40, 50 years ago, when we bought chicken, we typically would go and buy a whole chicken. Today, it seems like you only find a whole chicken on the rotisserie grill. You can find them, but the majority of what we see in the grocery store is parts. Now, I understand people like to choose what part of the chicken they want to eat. But if they're at a slaughterhouse and they see a chicken with a tumor, what are they going to do? Cut it out. And then they'll chop up the rest for parts and sell it to you. And we know that cancer doesn't just spread by direct extension, but it also spreads through the blood and lymphatics. So if a chicken has a tumor somewhere in its body, there's a good chance it's going to have tumorous cells floating around. Now, let me just tell you something. Costco, you all know about Costco. I know there's not one right here, but I think there's one 30 minutes away, something. Yeah. Costco, they are masters of marketing. Yeah. Costco sells rotisserie chicken for $4.99 across the United States. Other stores have gone up to $5.99, $6.99, even $7.99. Costco sells it for $4.99, $5, because they know it'll bring customers into the store. And where do they put the chickens? On the very back wall. You got to walk through the entire store to get to it. And they know that they will put up displays on what they call the end caps that'll get your attention. You will walk in there and realize that they have something that you didn't know you needed until you got in the store. You know? So in order to keep that price point, you know what Costco did? Costco bought like 600 acres in the Midwest, and they have opened a chicken farm, and they're raising their own chickens to cut out the middleman and to keep that price point. Because they know it'll draw you into the store, and you'll buy something else once you walk in through the doors. So it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable. An Australian study found an association between a host of different animal products and colon cancer in women. Implicated foods included red meat and liver, as well as seafood and dairy products. In this study, however, the very worst food group was eggs, with the heaviest consumers experiencing 6 times the risk of colon cancer. 6 times the risk. All right, let's talk about breast cancer and weight. So these are premenopausal women. These are postmenopausal women. If you have a normal weight, your risk stratification is 1. If you are obese, meaning you are 20% above your ideal body weight, or typically about 30 or more pounds overweight, your risk stratification goes up 3 times. Postmenopausal women, women who have stopped having periods, menarche. Normal weight, risk stratification is 1. If you are obese, 20% above your ideal body weight, or 30 or more pounds overweight, risk stratification goes up 12 times. 12 times. That's significant. One recent study found that women who exercise an average of 4 hours per week reduced their risk of breast cancer by nearly 60% compared to non-exercisers. 4 hours a week, about how much is that a day, give or take? Yeah, about 35, 45 minutes, somewhere in there, 37.8 or whatever it is, I don't know. So if you are doing that, you cut your risk by 60%. How much am I recommending that you exercise a day? 1 hour a day. If you were to do 1 hour a day, you would cut your risk of breast cancer by that much more. Yeah. How does exercise help us to reduce our risk of cancer? Well, when we exercise, it stimulates our white blood cells to release interleukin-1. Interleukin-1 is like a natural chemotherapy agent. Interleukin-1 stimulates the release of interleukin-2. Interleukin-2 also aids the immune system. That then doubles plasma interferon levels, which also works as a natural chemotherapy agent. And that all increases natural killer cells. Natural killer cells are like the sentries of our immune system. They are on the alert looking for things that could be harmful to us. And when it finds something harmful, it either tries to destroy it or to neutralize it so it doesn't hurt us. So how can we improve our natural killer cells? Well, get some moderate sunshine. Now, I know you're heading into fall and winter, so there's not going to be as much sunshine here, but when it is out, get some, okay? And look at this. If you're outside getting some sunshine and you're holding hands, that also boosts your immunity just a little bit, right? All right, beautiful. Well, they step out. They step out. Yeah, they step out. Yeah, but no, they get out too. You know, you understand. I like the picture because of that. All right. Eat a whole food, plant-based diet. I know we just ate, but that doesn't look too bad, does it? No, my wife made it. It was very good. Yum, yum. That's right. Selenium-rich foods. Selenium is found in nuts, seeds, grains, breads, and cereals. So make sure you're getting some of that in your diet. Omega-3s, we want to make sure we have an adequate amount of omega-3s. So flaxseed, chia seed, some nuts, some olives, all those different things may potentially give you that. Get deep sleep. This is our Maltipoo Callie. Kind of looks like Tucker a little bit, doesn't it? Yeah, and Callie's now sleeping until Jesus comes, but Callie was a good sleeper, and she got deep sleep until somebody rang the doorbell. Milk is immunosuppressive to natural killer cell function. Tripling milk protein increases your cancer risk. Cows may be on high protein diets. They may have hormones. All of that stuff triples your cancer risk. 3 servings of milk per day increases insulin-like growth factor. An elevated level of insulin-like growth factor is related to cancer of the breast, lung, and prostate. I wish I knew that when I was younger, because my mom was a nurse and she felt like I had to drink milk at every meal because, milk's good for you and all that stuff. And I really didn't like milk. And so I wish I didn't have to drink it when I was younger. So let me say this to you. If you could reduce your risk of cancer by 80%, would you do it? Okay. So 4 lifestyle factors: no smoking, no alcohol, a vegetarian diet high in fiber and low in fat, and a normal weight. Those 4 things prevent close to 80% of the cancers found in Western society today. And let me tell you, I stand in front of you this evening to tell you I believe by the grace of God that is possible for each and every one of us. Okay? It's not in our own might or our own strength. It's by the grace of God, but I believe it's possible for each and every one of us. If there were a pill that would make people immune to cancer, people would flock to the doctors for a prescription. Inventors would be wealthy beyond belief, but no such pill exists. Okay? But there are a number of things that we can do. Eat a diet low in fat and cholesterol. Cut out those animal products. Increase your fiber intake. Lifestyle change is not as simple as swallowing a pill. It involves learning new habits and skills. Good eating begins with good recipes. A good cookbook is an investment that will pay for itself multiple times over. If you want a good cookbook, go see Tina. She's got a few left. Act quickly before they're all gone. So, simple things to do. Stop eating all animal products. Cut out the processed foods. Stop eating a non-processed plant-based diet that contains phytochemicals. Look at this one. Go to sleep every night before 10 p.m. Some of us last night didn't follow that rule as well as we should have. But the Lord is good. He's faithful. If your tumor is small, sit tight and make some lifestyle changes. If your tumor is large, you may need to reduce it. You may need to debulk it with surgery. If your tumor is small, by the grace of God, I believe that lifestyle change can have a significant impact. And if you don't know how to do this on your own, learning new habits and choices from a lifestyle and wellness center like NEWSTART, or there's other ones around, may be helpful and beneficial. Oh Lord, our God, we thank you for a full day. Lord, we thank you for each one who has been here. We ask you to be with those who could not be here. We thank you for the information that we have been exposed to, Lord, and I just pray you'll help us to understand it and apply it to our lives. Dismiss us now with your blessing. Help us to get good rest and bring us back at the appointed time and hour tomorrow is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.